And you may know that the Germans are my second favorite people. My first is everybody else. Hello. The kid, how far is it from Hamburg to Paris? And he said, I think it's probably about a 3-day march. And I thought that was pretty good for the kid. Ride 'em, Jew boy. Ride 'em all around the old corral. I'm with you, boy. If I've got to ride 6 million miles. Now the smoke from camps arising. See the helpless creatures on their way. Hey, old pal, ain't it surprising how far you can go before you stay? And don't you let the morning blind you when on your sleeve you wore the yellow star. Old memories still live behind you. Can't you see by your outfit who you are? How long will you be driven relentless round the world? The blood and the rhythm of the soul. Wild ponies all, your dreams were broken. Rounded up and made to move along. The loneliness which can't be spoken just swings a rope and rides inside a song. And dead limbs play with ringless fingers, a melody which burns you deep inside. Oh, how the song becomes the singer. May peace be ever with you as you ride. How long will you be driven relentless round the world? The blood in the rhythm of the soul. In the wind, candles glowing reminds you that today you are a child. The road ahead forever rolling, and anything worth crying can be smiled. So ride 'em, Jew boy. Ride 'em all around the old corral. I'm with you, boy. If I've got to ride 6 million miles. I now go with Mexican mouthwash tequila. I call it the Barry Manilow drink because it makes you feel good for a short period of time. And that's kind of what you need. La la, hoo la la, hoo la la. Heroes of a Texas Childhood, 23 heroes of mine when I was a kid. I've shown this book to a bunch of college kids in Texas, and of course, recent college graduates. You probably know more of the people in this book than they do. They never heard of Barbara Jordan. They never heard of Audie Murphy. They never heard of most of these people. In other words, they don't know upon whose shoulders they stand. And if I ever am elected governor of Texas, this book will be mandatory reading in the public school. Anyway, the story I'm going to read you is about my own father, who died about 12 years ago. I've kept this story in the present tense because I think it should keep everybody you love in the present tense as long as you possibly can. This is called Tom Friedman, the Navigator. Because I'm the oldest living Jew in Texas who doesn't own real estate, and given my status in general as a colorful character, there are those who profess to be surprised that I ever indeed had a father or a mother. I assure you, I had both. For many years, my parents owned and directed Echo Hill Ranch, a summer camp near Kerrville where I grew up, or maybe just got older. I remember my dad, Tom Friedman, talking to all the campers on Father's Day in the dining hall after lunch. Each summer, he'd say essentially the same words. For those of you who are lucky enough to have a father, now's the time to remember him and let him know that you love him. Write a letter home today. Many years have passed since I last heard Tom's message to the campers, but love, I suppose, has no sell-by date. When my father was a young boy, growing up in the Chicago of the late 20s, his first job was working for a Polish peddler. The man had a horse and cart that was loaded up with fruits and vegetables, and Tom sat on the very top. Through the streets and alleys of the old West Side they'd go, with a peddler crying his wares in at least 5 languages, and my father running the purchases up to the housewives who lived in the top floors of the tenement buildings. There were trolley cars then, clotheslines strung across city alleys like medieval banners. My father still remembers the word the peddler seemed to cry out more than any other. The word was kartoffel. It is Polish for potato. In November 1944, my mother, Minnie, gave birth to me in a manger somewhere on the south side of Chicago. I lived there 1 year, couldn't find work, and moved to Texas, where I haven't worked since. And all this time, my father was far away, fighting for his country and his wife and a baby boy he might never see. Tom was a navigator in World War II, flying a heavy bomber for the 8th Air Force, the old B-24, also known as the Liberator, which in time it was. Tom's plane was called the I've Had It. He flew 35 successful missions over Germany, the last occurring on November 9th, 1944, 2 days after he learned that he was a brand new father. As the navigator, the responsibility fell to him to bring the 10-man crew back safely. In retrospect, it's not terribly surprising that fate and the powers that be had selected Tom to be the navigator. He was the only one aboard the I've Had It who possessed a college degree. He was also the oldest man on the plane. He was 23 years old. After each mission, it was a custom to paint a small bomb on the side of the plane. In the rare instance of shooting down an enemy plane, a swastika was painted. When one incoming crew, however, accidentally hit a British runway maintenance worker, a small teacup was painted on the side of the plane, practically engendering an international incident. Tom was a hero in what he still refers to as the last good war. For his efforts, he received the Distinguished Flying Cross and the Air Medal with 3 oak leaf clusters and the heartfelt gratitude of the crew. Yet the commanding officer's first words to Tom and his young compatriots had not been wrong. The CO had told them, look at the man on their left and look at the man on their right. When you return, he'd said, They will not be here. This dire prophecy proved to be almost correct. The mighty 8th suffered a grievous attrition rate during the height of the war. Like most true war heroes, Tom rarely talks about the war. My sister, Marcy, once saw Tom sitting alone in a darkened room and asked, "Is everything all right, Father?" To this, Tom replied, "The last time everything was all right was August 14th, 1945. That was the day Japan surrendered." On a recent trip to O'Hare Airport in Chicago, I commandeered a limo and drove through the area where Tom had grown up. There were slums and suburbs and Starbucks. But the trolley cars and the clotheslines and the peddler with his horse and cart were gone. "Kartoffel," I said to the limo driver, but he just looked straight ahead. Either he wasn't Polish or he didn't want any potatoes. Today, Tom lives in Austin with his new wife, Edith Kruger, and his 2 dogs, Sam and Perky. He has 3 children, 3 grandchildren. He eats lunch at the Frisco, still plays tennis with his old pals. He did not, as he contends, teach me everything I know. Only almost everything. He taught me tennis. He taught me chess. He taught me how to belch. He taught me to always stand up for the underdog. He taught me the importance of treating children like adults and adults like children. He's a significant American because by his example, his spirit, and his unseen hand, he's guided children of all ages safely through the winding, often torturous courses of their lives. One of them was me. Tom's war is long over. Indeed, the whole era seems gone, like the crews who never came home, lost forever among the salt shaker stars. And yet, when the future may look its darkest, there sometimes occurs an oddly comforting moment when, with awkward grace, the shadow of a silver plane flies inexplicably close to my heart. One more mission for the Navigator. Thank you. How are we doing on time, Mark? We got what?
You want to do a song?
Yeah, I want to do 2 songs.
Okay, well, I think we're going to have a song. So that's. I'm sure you'd agree with me that if that book's not available as an audio book, it ought to be, because that was so beautifully rendered then.
Okay. This is a bunch of my shrink, Willie Nelson, has been informing me that if you fail at something long enough, you become a legend. And so I haven't written a song in 35 or 40 years. I've been writing books, been in politics, other things. So now I've started writing again. Also at Willie's suggestion, not to watch, what's that show? Matlock. I've been watching Matlock reruns late at night. He says, never do that. That's bad energy, He says, instead, keep writing, Kinky, keep writing. All right, so I've written about 12 new songs, and I'm sprinkling the show like tomorrow night at the German Club. There will be a lot of new material. This will be one of them. I'm sending out to my old longtime friend, Piers Ackerman. Let's have a little light applause for Piers Ackerman. Go in. My childhood toboggan companion. Anyway, this is a complicated little song. I'm working without a net. Remember, it's only been performed in Germany, actually, and maybe Norway, a few places. And it's a song about the way a child might look at a homeless person. And it's based on a true incident that happened to me earlier this year. It's called Jesus in Pajamas. Boy, I may need some Mexican mouthwash before we start. I like it here. Be my friend. Jesus in pajamas came at 3:16 one morning to a Denny's by the freeway in the ancient town of Dallas, where everything was frozen. There are many Denny's in Dallas, but few of them were chosen for Jesus in pajamas to finally have a rosin. Jesus in pajamas came shuffling to my table. Help him if you can, the voice said. Help him if you're able. Like a clown, like an angel, like a jester in Denny's palace. Couldn't say for sure, I only knew that it was Dallas, where the only whole heart is a broken one, and the only true love an unspoken one. So help him if you can, help him if you're able. When Jesus in pajamas is standing at your table. Jesus in pajamas had a coupon he was tearing. He was drooling slightly on the tattered clothing he was wearing. From underneath that dirty green knit cap, God's eyes were softly staring. Help him if you can, they said. Help him if you're able. But I turned my mortal gaze away and I got up from that table. I walked out past a door that just said men. I left Jesus in pajamas on the cross again. And now the only whole heart is an aching one, and the only true love a forsaken one. So help him if you're able. Help him if you can. And God bless you, friend. The menu's in your hand. Thank you very much, folks. We'll send this out to Bishop Clark, right? Yeah. To Bishop Clark, who is to blame for my being here, I think, today, and largely. Well, a redneck nerd in a bowling shirt was a guzzling Lone Star beer, talking religion and politics for all the world to hear. Well, you know, we have our own tequila company in Texas, Man and Black Tequila. We like to say, this is not your father's tequila. This is your grandfather's gardener's tequila. And this is pretty good stuff right now. I like it here. All right, Bishop Clark, take two. Well, a redneck nerd in a bowling shirt was a guzzling Lone Star beer, talking religion and politics for all the world to hear. They ought to send you back to Russia, boy, or New York City one. You just want to doodle a Christian girl and you kill God's only son. I said, has it occurred to you, you nerd, that that's not very nice? We Jews believe it was Santa Claus that killed Jesus Christ. You know you don't look Jewish, he said. Near as I could figure, I had you lamped for a slightly anemic, well-dressed country nigger. Oh, they ain't making Jews like Jesus anymore. They don't turn the other cheek the way they done before. He started into shouting and spitting on the floor. Lord, they ain't making Jews like Jesus anymore. He says, now I ain't a racist, but Aristotle Onassis is one Greek we don't need. And them niggers, Jews, and Sigma News, all they ever do is breed. And wops and mix and slopes and spicks and spooks are on my list. And there's one little Hebe from the heart of Texas. Is there anyone I miss? Well, I hits him with everything I had right square between the eyes. I says, I'm gonna get you, you son of a bitch, you spouting that pack of lies. If there's one thing I can't abide, it's an ethnocentric racist. Now you take back that shit you said about Aristotle Onassis. Oh, they ain't making Jews like Jesus anymore. We don't turn the other cheek the way we done before. You could hear that honky holler as he hit that hardwood floor. Lord, they ain't making Jews like Jesus anymore. All right, everybody in Australia now. Here we go. Ready? Oh, they ain't making Jews like Jesus anymore. You got it. We don't turn the other cheek the way we done before. Well, the whole damn place was singing as I strolled right out the door. Lord, Jesus. You know, folks, Jesus loves you can be very comforting words unless you hear them in a Mexican prison. They ain't making Jews like Jesus anymore. God bless you, everybody.
Just start off by asking you about something I referred to in the introduction, the US elections that are going on. You made a reference to Bernie Sanders and you know what his candidacy meant. Do you see the all other things being equal, the race between Trump and Clinton as a race between the unorthodox and the orthodox? Is it sort of politics as usual from Clinton versus a total disruptor like Trump? Is that the way you see it?
Well, I would love to have somebody running. Here? Okay.
Yeah, stand up here.
Look, that was a pretty good ending right there. Why don't we do
No, that's showbiz. This is politics.
Politics, as you know, my definition of politics has always been politics. Poly means more than one, and ticks are blood-sucking parasites. And the fact that our system has produced what it has in America is really ridiculous. And especially when you look at those guys. I mean, you look at, well, I don't know. and pretty well, but I will probably write in Bobby Kennedy. I think that's what I'll do. Yeah, okay. Now, what was the question?
It's about whether Trump represents the unorthodox and Clinton represents the orthodox. You know, whether it's more of the same, more of politics as usual with Clinton and the safe choice, or whether...
All right, don't forget, Jesus rode in on a jackass, okay? Trump might turn out to be something, and Trump does share one quality with Roosevelt, FDR, and with Churchill, and that is he was an aristocratic freak growing up. Like Churchill was an adult butterfly collector, you know, he was a polo player in India. He was not the kind of person we would enjoy being around. He was a guy that was always on the inside of the country club. Now, that's the one good thing about being a Jew. The best place is to be outside looking in on situations like that. But what happened with FDR and with Churchill, at least, is once elected and once they felt the power of the office, they grew with it. And they did listen to their better angels, and they became better people, much better people. And there was a palpable bond between them and the common man. There's no denying it. They were a disgrace to their class. There's no question. And so they became very great men. And Trump, you know, I prefer the guy who gives $1 million to the children's orphanage and doesn't have to put his name on the wall. You know, I would like Mr. Anonymous. That's who I love. But the truth is, we're not. When I was in Europe, the people kept saying, "We're so afraid of Trump. We're so afraid that he might be elected. You know, we're so worried. We're afraid." And I tell them, "Well, your track record on who to be afraid of has not been very good." You know?
I think that's a good note to end that question on. Nicholas Stewart from the Canberra Times.
I've lost a cigar somewhere.
Nick Stewart from the Canberra Times. I'd like to ask you, you began standing for public office as a Republican. You've since stood as a Democrat, and now I understand there's probably a bit of sadness because as soon as Donald Trump announced that you weren't going to be his running mate, there's a bit of that, oh, sorry, my throat's feeling a bit dry. Maybe I need some of that tequila stuff. But seriously, how much, as a country and western singer, you obviously deal with the people who are feeling outsiders. They're upset with the system. How much more anger should they have now today than they could have had 10 years or 15 years ago? Has politics changed, in other words, and become just that little bit more excluding to those people, to ordinary people?
Well, incredibly enough, I think the Democrats have turned Trump into John Henry fighting the steam drill. I mean, the steam drill is Hillary and her team, which nobody, like Molly Ivins said about Dallas, that Dallas is a town that roots for Goliath to beat David. But the rest of us, we don't root for Goliath to beat David. The Democrats have somehow turned Trump into David. I mean, the fact that he's a billionaire, that he spends his whole life on golf courses and brags, that's not, remember, all these people that we love that have come down to us, whether it's arguably Mother Teresa, but Albert Schweitzer, Gandhi, all these people were preppy, you know, they were the worst kind of people when they were younger. You could throw them in with Churchill as a young person, you know. They had a conversion. These are not people that have always cared about others. Trump is exactly the kind of guy who might have rode in on a jackass and everybody mocked and all, and then turns out to be the most, not to compare Trump to Jesus Christ or anything like that. Let's just say there's a chance. There's hope there. There is no hope on the Democratic side. The Democrats today would be Harry Truman would hate him, JFK would hate him, Barbara Jordan would hate him, Sam Rayburn would hate him. All the old Democrats would not recognize these people. They've totally screwed Israel, and for that matter, every other ally that they have. And Obama was a great candidate. He's a very good candidate, and he should have stopped there. He has become kind of the Forrest Gump of all presidents. He really has. And he's got a few months left. Don't let the White House door slam you on the ass. And keeping the Mandela theme going, remember what I think will be Obama's legacy. The kind of thing was taking selfies with his friends at Mandela's funeral, the leader of the free world. I mean, he can only, you know, maybe, as we like to say, he's doing the best he can. Maybe he is, but it's not good enough. Yeah. So, and the choice we have is a hell of a choice. I mean, it's nothing that, mainly the inspiration, you know, I guess that's the word. That's a big part of being president. That is what Bobby Kennedy had. You know, that is what Mandela had. These guys don't have it. They just don't have it. Hillary doesn't have it. I don't think Trump does. I know Obama doesn't. And he's an agent of change. That's how he got elected, and he could not change.
I suppose the question goes to, is the, as you say, the prospect of Trump developing in office is unknown. Is the anger that Nicholas referred to, the anger in the public, is it worth the risk of upsetting the apple cart and going for that change and that chance of Trump developing? Is the anger that deep, or is it?
Well, like the old, who's that British comedian who said, "If it ain't broke, break it." You know, I mean, this is time to do something. If we're ever going to do something, Trump might be able to. You know, I could be completely wrong about him. I don't. I mean, Trump is a. Anyway, to me, I'm probably the only person that sees the John Henry fighting the steam drill. Little analogy there, but I mean, I'm imputing some good to Trump that this man could, at age 71, turn around. I mean, I'm 71, though I read at the 73-year-old level.
Question from John Millard from Art Sound FM.
Yes, sir.
John Millard, Art Sound FM. Mr. Friedman, many fine American composers and songwriters, from Jerome Kern, George Gershwin, Leonard Bernstein, right through to Bob Dylan, have a Jewish background. Similarly, many American humorists, from Groucho Marx through to Woody Allen, in fact, have a similar background, as does, of course, that fine singer-songwriter and musician Tom Lehrer. You're a very fine singer-songwriter, and as we've all heard today, something of a humorist. To what extent do you attribute that to your own ancestry?
I didn't hear the very last you said.
Ancestry, your own ancestry.
Oh, well, that's always the hardest, most tedious kind of question, is what Judaism has to do with it all, and it probably has a lot to do with it. I tend to follow Willie Nelson's advice on this too, on songwriting, because as far as songwriting goes, it's a religion, and he has 3 religions, by the way: music, golf, and dope. And golf I find stultifyingly dull. The only 2 good balls I ever hit was when I stepped on the garden rake. Now, songwriting is a spiritual thing. For some reason, I didn't do it for 40 years. I'm doing it now. And if you want to do this, if you want to be an artist of any kind, be miserable. That's my advice. Is, of step 1, be an unhappy person. If you can't get unhappy, you can't do this. And my definition of an artist is anyone who's ahead of his time and behind on his rent. That will help. So why is there this Jewish theme? Well, there's also a lot of Jews who are not songwriters. You know, and there's very few that are writing songs in country music. I don't know of any that I ever met.
Maybe it's that outsider thing you referred to before.
Yeah, I think the outsider thing is important, is being able to watch the people at their big banquet, you know, but not being accepted or part of it. It does seem like we've been up here for several hours.
We've only got a few more questions.
Why end on a sour note when you got things going really well?
Like I said, this is politics. It always ends on a sour note.
I have lost a cigar recently. I don't know what the hell it is.
Tim Shaw.
Field the question. Let me
I'll field the question, you do what you have to do.
I sure do, Mr. Friedman. Thank you so much for your presentation. Tim Shaw is my name, and I host a talk show here in Canberra. You know, people pick up the phone, they're very strong about their opinions. Can I take you back to 1973 in Buffalo, New York? And you sang a song that was put your biscuits in the oven and your buns in the bed. And I understand there was a bit of problem on stage and you and the band had to leave by the back exit. 43 years on, what would you like to say to the women of Australia and the women of America? Number two, if you had the chance, they said, Kinky Friedman, we need you to change the 4 words on the US currency, "In God We Trust." What would Kinky Friedman replace "In God We Trust"?
I can't do it on the TV show. But it's an Australian phrase, which is, I need 4 words or 3? Because I would go with "piss off mate," basically, would be a good one. Well, now I've forgotten, the 2-part questions. That's why it's a pleasure not to be in politics. You don't even
Okay, the question was about a song you sang in Buffalo back in 1973.
Well, that song, "Get Your Biscuits in the Oven, Your Buns in the Bed," is a harmless feminist ditty. Halfway through this song, this was 1973, and the Jew Boys had just organized, and it was one of our first shows. And we played that song, which was getting some airplay, and a group of, shall we say, cranked up lesbians attacked the stage. And they began wrecking all the equipment and fighting with the Jew Boys, and they were winning. So the cops were called, and we got a protective escort off campus. 3 months later, I got an award for the Male Chauvinist Pig of the Year Award, 1973, from the National Organization for Women, an award I'm still very proud of. But that's really between that and the spiritual award of Nelson Mandela. Those are the only awards I've got. I know Waylon Jennings was a man who never accepted awards. He thought they were bullshit all the way. He did not. And I like that attitude. It's a good one. Good.
Works for me too.
Healthy loser's attitude, I think.
Question from Chris Johnson.
Chris Johnson, the New Daily. Kinky, thanks for your...
Did you say New Delhi?
The New Daily.
He doesn't look Indian. I don't think he's Indian.
Just down the road, as you may have seen, is our Parliament House. This week, a committee of Parliament is staging an inquiry into the banking sector. There's a lot of unease about some of the practices of our banks. I thought you might have some choice words to describe banks in general, but also, is there something we can learn from the American banking system that might work here, or is it something we should avoid?
I don't know, but I'm going so deaf that the nice thing about going deaf, I thought you were talking about Arnold Palmer, okay? That's what it sounded like. You were talking about Parliament, okay. And the New Delhi thing. So the nice thing about going deaf is if you have an imagination, you can make up more interesting things that people are saying than what they're really saying. I'll just briefly tell you an example of this. Is not so long ago I was on a plane to Dallas, and there was a kid sitting next to me. He might have been a 47-year-old man, I don't know, but he was whatever. And I was telling him, I can't believe this, that I'm 71 years old. I just can't. And the kid said, he said, my father has just turned 71 and he's wearing a bikini. Now this interested me quite naturally. How much time do we have left here?
No, keep going. This is we can't stop now.
This is wearing the Kingster out, though. It's a real.
Oh, is it? No. We've only got
well, no, it's
10
all right. So I became interested when he said his dad had turned 71 and was wearing a bikini. I thought this is interesting, and I kept the conversation going with him long enough to find out what he had really said, which was, my dad has just turned 71 and he's moving to McKinney, which is a little town north of Dallas. So I would just say that it rattles me, it irritates me when I can't even get the, I'm thinking all this time you're talking about Arnold Palmer, and I'm thinking about, so that, but.
He just died, I believe.
But I will say, when I can't hear somebody's name, I always think of the old man who wanted to rake leaves in his backyard, and he couldn't find a rake. So he hollers up to his wife, who's sitting on the deck, and he shouts, "Where's the rake?" And his wife says, "What?" And the old man says, "I need the rake." And the wife goes, "We need a full visual." And the old man says, "What?" And the wife says, "I left it behind the bush." And the more sophisticated the crowd, the better this one goes down. Folks, let me tell you thank you very much, and remember, if you're driving this evening, don't forget your car. Lord.
Look, we got 2 more questions. I think we'll get in.
Jesus Christ.
One from Simon.
All right. Over here, and this kind of. Well,
All right. Well, look. Let's move on to.
well, I'm sure gender, toilets and gender are a very important issue in Australia. I mean, nobody in their right mind takes this shit seriously. They can't. We've got a broadcast window to fill.
We'll take one more question from Cyberlane. One more question.
We could do a song.
We'll take one more question from
Yes,
Cyberlane.
Kinky Friedman, thank you so much. It's been a very entertaining hour here at the Press
Thank you,
Club. Sabra Lane from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. You talked earlier about how Democrat presidents of the past would be deeply uncomfortable and disrespectful of Hillary Clinton. On the flip side, what do you think of Republican leaders of the past would think about Donald Trump? Does he embody the ideals and principles of the Republican Party? And looking at those 2 candidates, do that old quote that people get the politicians they deserve, are Americans getting the leaders they deserve?
Oh, well, they absolutely are. And they're not getting leaders, but they're getting the people they deserve to be there. And really, when you look at Hillary's, all of this stuff going on here with the foundation and everything else, makes me believe that we really need term limits on all politicians. Really, to have term limits where we limit all of them to 2 terms, 1 in office and 1 in prison. I would suggest that. And it really, I mean, I'm not heartbroken about that. It doesn't surprise me. But the good people, whether they're musicians, I'm gonna say musicians, songwriters are decent people, creative people, honest people. They're good people. And the goal is to sail as close to the truth as you can without sinking the ship, And I don't say it's like in journalism today. When I speak to a high school journalism group convention or something in Texas, it breaks your heart. Everyone in the audience is out for the truth. They believe that's what journalism is, to get to the truth. And then the minute they get into the real journalism, it's anything but that. And I mean, it has just disappeared. The last journalist we had probably was James Foley, who had his head cut off, who escaped one group of assassins and got back home to the States. And his father asked him, and he told his dad he's going back to the Middle East. And his dad asked him, "Oh, why in the hell would you do that? You were kidnapped before, you got away, why would you go back?" And he said, "Why does a fireman run into a burning building?" And that's the spirit of journalism. And he's the guy that Obama spent exactly 32 seconds before he hopped on his golf cart and was high-fiving his friends, after he...